The time has come for another episode of the ASUN Gameday podcast. I am William Hall. Let's just get straight to it. We've got one undefeated team overall in conference play right now, EKU women's basketball. Look, we've been talking about this team the entire season, about how just they have been the class of women's basketball. Going back to non-conference, they've really just they're kind of getting it. They're getting it done. Hard-nosed style, just to the ground. They're not making a lot of noise, but they're winning. And when you win, we gotta acknowledge it here on the podcast. And I think that the 10 game winning streak they're on is the seventh longest in the nation, and this is also the best start to conference play this program has had. I think that just says a lot to what Greg Todd has built, the foundation, and then he's got the student athletes that are in that program now on this year's teams. They've got the buy-in, and they're just going in there week in and week out and executing. And just it's there to be seen. The evidence is right there. 8-0 in conference play, EKU. Salute to the Colonels. And Austin Peay, another women's basketball team to talk about. The Govs went on the road to Florida. They faced off with FGCU, faced off with Stetson, and they remained undefeated on the road this season at 10-0. And I think that the FGCU game was historic for just, I think, for that program. This was the first time they were able to get a win against FGCU, and doing it in that building was even more impressive from Brittany Young and her team. And then the game against Stetson, I think, showed a lot of determination in that team. They had a large lead in that game that they did give up. So Stetson fought back. They tied their game up, but EKU at the end got it back together and got that win. And that kind of game, I think, can build some character with that squad the way you were testing. And obviously, you don't want to give up that large of a lead on the road. But when you do, Stetson's got all that momentum. They're in their own building. It's kind of the recipe for a game that Stetson could have come back and won. Austin Peay kept it together, got that win, 10-0 on the road this season. I mean, that puts them in the league with UConn, Louisville, Baylor, Utah. Those are the teams who are undefeated on the road this season, but none of them right now have gotten 10 wins on the road. So at 10-0, shout out to the Govs for that tremendous road record that they have. And the last women's team I want to highlight here to open up, North Alabama. They're on the second longest winning streak in the conference on the women's side with 4 in a row. They only had the game against Queens this week, but again, as I talked about last week, they've got those games coming up that I think it's time to see what the Lions are going to be. And I think from what I've seen, they have the ability to, but a lot of times you just got to go out there and play those games. I think if you look at, where we thought teams would be preseason and where they actually are, that obviously changed because we're guessing, and those things are coming out back in October. But right now, as we stand, 4-game winning streak for UNA, Candy Whitaker and that team. They only had one game last week because of the weather, schedule changes. So now it's time to see this week when they get back to it what they can do. So looking forward to UNA, and I've kind of kept a pin in them because I'm curious what that team is going to look like moving forward here. On the men's side, it's the usual suspects. We got Lipscomb, Austin Peay. The Bisons riding a 5-game winning streak. That includes that win against Austin Peay. And they're going into a road trip against Jacksonville in North Florida. And we saw the Bisons face off against FGCU and Stetson at home. And that Stetson game, that was a real test. Went to overtime with the Hatters. And I think that if you look at that game, obviously Stetson has figured something out with Lipscomb this year because they are the one team that has beaten Lipscomb in conference play. And you take that game, the first Stetson game, the second Stetson game, and I would say that Austin Peay game are games that where we've seen Lipscomb tested. And they've, for the most part, been a bend but don't break, but they do have the one loss to Stetson. But I think that Lipscomb is continuing to have that season that we were expecting them to have when they started off to a very strong non-conference season. And it's just been continuing. They're sitting at 7-1 right now in conference play, and the Bisons are rolling. 7-1 seems to be the record to have you at the top of the men's basketball standing since Queens did finally take a loss. And another 7-1 team, Austin Peay. They look really dominant against FGCU, and they didn't miss a beat against Stetson. And Austin Peay continues to be one of the better offenses week in and week out in the conference, but their defense, that Govs defense, I think is really what separates them from the rest of the teams in our conference. And I think that is what can push them towards the regular season championship, towards that tournament championship, is that defense. If they can keep that defense going, that keeps them in games, and they have the offense that can score to just go ahead and secure that win. But that defense is a real separator, in my opinion, when looking at Austin Peay. Finally, Central Arkansas. Winners of 3 in a row. And I talked about UCA, about their start, and they kind of stumbled, and now they're kind of coming back, and they're kind of finding that groove. 21 points on the road against West Georgia. Nothing to sneeze at there. I think that going on the road and getting a win like that is key. Now, similar to UNA women's basketball, this is a time where I'm kind of going to be focusing on what the Bears have going on and just trying to see. I mean, they've got Queens coming up. They've got EKU. The next 4 after that, they've got UNA twice in that 4-game span, along with Lipscomb and Bellarmine. This either turns around and you're looking at this UCA team and they are continuing to be at the top, or that could kind of bring them back. I mean, we're at the point of the season where teams have to start separating themselves. We're almost at the halfway point. You kind of start to see the separation. We're kind of starting to guess, like, okay, who are the real contenders? Who are the real teams that could be the regular season champion? Who are the teams that could be potentially in the top 4 to get one of those buys in the tournament? So far, Central Arkansas has found itself record-wise in that top 4, but they've got games against some of these teams coming up that are also up there, and this is time. This is show and tell time, and I want to see what UCA can do when they are matched up against a team like Queens. I know Queens is coming off that loss to West Georgia, a team that Central Arkansas handled pretty well in that same building. Central Arkansas Queens, that men's game coming up, could be a little interesting. But those are, I think, teams on men's and women's side that have got our attention this week, going into this next week of action. Got games starting on Wednesday this week again. And we're just getting started on this episode of the ASUN Gameday podcast. So we're going to take a quick break and be right back with some of those key matchups.
Welcome to the Atlantic Sun, where heart-pounding moments are born and where champions rise above, where speed defies limits and precision finds its mark, where millions of fans nationwide cheer for excellence, determination, and fairness, where public, private, and faith-based schools compete side by side, fostering sportsmanship and unity. From the beaches to the mountains, the Atlantic Sun is the destination.
Now, let's take a look at some of our key matchups this week. And first of all, Central Arkansas at Queens. The Royals finally had their undefeated streak come to an end. So I want to see how they bounce back after that loss that they took. And Central Arkansas coming in, we just talked about that strong UCA team, about what they did against West Georgia just last week. This could be a shootout with 2 of the top 3 scoring offenses in the conference. So they're battling in the Queen City, UCA at Queens. Austin Peay at EKU. That's a Thursday game. It's a long-time rivalry between these two programs, 20 years of history. Remember how the last game just a few weeks ago between these two teams ended. So I'm really excited to see Austin Peay and EKU back at it again. On the women's side, FGCU at Central Arkansas. Although the records may not be what we thought they would be coming into this game, it's still FGCU with Central Arkansas women's basketball. I still believe that there is a lot on the line when these two teams match up, 2 of the best teams in our conference. And anytime those two teams play, it's going to be exciting. And they're kind of in the, I wouldn't say they're in the middle of the standings, but both of these teams would like to get a win, especially over the other. And that's the game we've got coming up on Thursday. And on Saturday, on the women's side, Jacksonville at Austin Peay. The Dolphins and the Govs, they always seem to have good games when they match up. This time they're doing it in Clarksville. And they both, I think, are very similar to the FGCU Central Arkansas. They're kind of not quite at the top, where we've got some teams that are starting to show a little separation at the top of the standings. But they're in that middle that they kind of need to get those wins against the other teams that are kind of bunched up in that middle. This is another one of those games. Jacksonville or Austin Peay. I think that Austin Peay has been okay at home. They've been much better on the road. And Jacksonville is a team that's been stronger at home than they are on the road. So this is a kind of an interesting matchup. Waiting to see what will happen Saturday. Dolphins and Govs face off in Clarksville. Now it's time for the power rankings. And I've got something interesting going on the men's side. And I think that's where I'm going to start, because it's the one I feel like the most significant change has happened. Number one on the men's side, I'm going to go down the line. Number one is Lipscomb. And I think that kind of speaks for itself. Already talks about Lipscomb. They're on the 5-game winning streak. 2 is Austin Peay, 7-1 matching conference records. I think the only differentiator there probably would be very slightly because Lipscomb just recently beat Austin Peay. They do have another game coming up. Assuming that both of them went out, the winner of that game probably could switch depending on the winner of that game. I think that those two teams are, in my opinion, there's a kind of a dotted line after those two right now. It's not a solid line, not a solid separator, but I do have Lipscomb, Austin Peay kind of in a world of their own, sort of. 3, I've got Central Arkansas. And I've got Central Arkansas there because of the winning streak that they are on and the way they won that game on the road at West Georgia. I think deserves a number 3 ahead of Queens, who is number 4, because they lost to that same West Georgia team in that same building. This is what it is. Number 5 is West Georgia. I think that overall West Georgia has been they've been a 500 team. They've been a team that's just they have a good week, then they have a week where they're questionable. They have a good game, then they have a game right behind it where you kind of wonder what's going on with them. I think that West Georgia would be 5th right now in my power rankings right now. And again, this is just how these teams are playing right now. Momentum, wins, things like that. And look, when you win 2 games at home against EKU and Bellarmine, you get 6th in the power rankings for me. North Florida, number 6 in my men's basketball power rankings. Enough said. On to the women. Number 1, I think it's clearly EKU. 8-0, said a lot about EKU right now. I think 2 is Austin Peay, and I'm going to put Austin Peay 2nd in my power rankings because of those 2 wins they got on the road. Obviously, being undefeated on the road, the FGCU win was big for that program. Big to just beat FGCU in that building in general. And then to go after that, get the win against Stetson. We got Austin Peay at number 2. 3, West Georgia. I think that West Georgia, despite losing to Central Arkansas, still is one of the better teams we've got on our women's side right now. And I've got them at 3. 4, I've got North Alabama women. I know they only had the 1 game last week, but I think that, again, the last 3 times they've been out on the floor, they've gotten wins. Right now they're 4. 5 in my power rankings is Central Arkansas. I think that Central Arkansas has slipped a little bit, but not to the point where I'm overly concerned about the Sugar Bears right now. I think they're in a good spot. 6 is Stetson. And I look at Stetson. I know they got the split at home. They got the win against Lipscomb. They probably feel like they could have gotten that win against Austin Peay. They had to come from 23 points down to be in that position at the end of that game. couple missed free throws. Things shake out a little differently at the end of that game. But I got Stetson at number 6 in my women's basketball power rankings. That's right here, right now. Things could change. Eyebrows get raised. It is what it is. Let's take one more quick break, and we'll be back to talk the ASUN matchup of the week. Let's take a look at our ASUN matchup of the week. It is going to be EKU at West Georgia, women's basketball, 7 p.m. Eastern, Thursday in Carrollton, Georgia. This is a matchup between the teams that sit first and second in our women's basketball standings. We're nearly halfway through conference play, and EKU picked 5th in the preseason coaches poll. That's 5th. They're 8-0. At the top of the standings, facing off against West Georgia, picked 10th in the preseason coaches poll. They're at 6-2, second in the women's basketball standings. There are 2 streaks on the line this Thursday. We got EKU's 10-game winning streak this season going up against the Wolves' 12-game home winning streak that dates back to last season. Now, that home winning streak for West Georgia, that's 16th best in the nation. We've already talked about the historic start to the season, best in program history and conference play start, 8-0 for EKU. But this is the second year of Division I basketball for West Georgia. A very impressive start for UWG. These 2 teams have only met twice. Wolves won last year in Carrollton. This year's conference play began with EKU defeating West Georgia in Richmond. Now, there's a chance we may need to have the popcorn ready because this game features 2 top-scoring offenses in the league. I mean, 1 and 2 are facing off. The fireworks they could be going off inside the Coliseum, and that's just the recipe we need for our ASUN matchup of the week. Once again, locked in, ready, EKU at West Georgia. Let's see what we get. I'm William Hall. This is the ASUN Game Day podcast. We are locked in on another matchup of the week, locked in on another week of exciting ASUN action, ready to hit that halfway point in conference play as we make our way to March. William Hall, signing off.